Good morning and welcome back for another daily devotion. Today's devotion comes from the book of Numbers. I don't think we've done one from Numbers. So we're in Numbers 15, starting at verse 37. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, throughout the generations to come, you are to make tassels on the corners of your garments, with a blue cord on each tassel. You will have these tassels to look at, and so you will remember all the commands of the Lord, that you may obey them and not prostitute yourselves by going after the lusts of your own hearts and eyes. Then you will remember to obey my commands and will be consecrated to your God. I am the Lord your God who brought you up out of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God." All right, so usually when I get some more obstreperous folks who don't want to be Christians or think we're silly, they bring up the tassels stuff. And partially it's a misunderstanding of the law, so we got that. That's fine. From these folks, it's an intentional misunderstanding. It's not like it's hard to figure out the threefold understanding of the law or to ask a Christian what we do with all this stuff, but be that as it may. I hear this from time to time, kind of mocking from atheists. I have a lot to mock them about, but I generally try to be nice. So why don't we have tassels, and all the tassels are silly. If you know any observant Jews, they're supposed to have these tassels on their clothes. Usually in America, this is really only the Orthodox, and the rest of the Jews either wear them on Shabbat or Sabbath, or don't wear them at all. You'll know the more Orthodox ones, when you see them, they'll have the tassels hanging out. Which is fine. So why is this devotion for today? Well, if you go through Numbers, and I know a lot of people, Numbers, if Leviticus didn't kill off your read the Bible cover to cover, Numbers will. So there it is. Even though Numbers is where you find Joshua starting off on his time. So what we've had here, though, is we've had, through the text, we've had this progression where in the same chapter here we've got supplementary offerings, so extra stuff you can do, and offerings for unintentional sin, and then the last one before this is the Sabbath breaker put to death. And so then this is a final warning. So you've got these thank offerings, you've got the sin offerings, you've got unintentional sin offerings, and then you have we've got to kill the people who break the Sabbath. To my knowledge, this was not really done. By the time of Jesus, though, we get the inclination that you can get the sense that the Pharisees really would like to string up Jesus for having his disciples pick grain on the Sabbath or heal on the Sabbath. He falls in there, and then we get this bit. Interesting about the tassels. Interestingly, with all of this tied up on that, though, tassels tied, even with all of this going on, we still have the last little bit, right? And the last little bit is interesting in this reading because it's not the usual, I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery, into a land of milk, flowing with milk and honey, a land that I promised to give you. No, that's for later. For right now, what we get is, I brought you up so I could be your God. So that's different. You get this sort of contractual deal. I'm going to do this and I'm going to bring you up and give you all the stuff. No, in Numbers, the idea is that God does this because he's going to be our God. God does this because he promised he would. And that's different. That's a different way to look at it. So, there are two things for devotion this morning. One, obviously the tassels are something that God uses to set the people apart. Between the beards and the kosher and the tassels and the phylacteries, that's the little box that they tie on their head, their forehead, and their arm, God wants them to be different. So one of the things that you can do is you can look around, and especially if you journal, write down those things that you do as a Christian that make you different from other religions, different from secular folk, different that and why you're different and what value you found in doing those things. So he's got this, God's got the tassels so that you can look at the tassels and remember the commandments. And here he says, not prostitute yourself after the desires of your hearts. I think he's looking forward to Isaiah and Hosea and Amos here and all the idolatry that's going to go. But I won't presuppose or kind of suggest think for God himself. So that's one way. And if we have nothing, if nothing comes to mind, the other part of this first half is, well, why is that? Why are we there? Why is this? Why are we short on this? So that's one kind of part to this devotion. The other devotional half to this is a poll here where you suggest, or where we might suggest that we take some time to look at what God has done for us personally just to be our God. And we, as Lutherans, always jump to forgiveness of sins, and that's good and right. And so if that's where your mind goes initially, that's fine. But I'd like to draw us a little deeper than that. Luther in his small catechism says that God, well, I'll back up to the Bible, right? James says that God is the giver of every good and perfect gift. And one of the early church fathers calls God the great benefactor. Luther now says that in that first article of the Creed, right, he's given me eyes and ears and all my senses, my reason, land, animals, house, home, family, wife, kids, all of that, right? And so if you have a small catechism, you might go and read through that list and let that list inform us. All those things he's done for us instead of bringing us up out of Egypt. I'm also okay with you using especially if you're a convert, having that you have that kind of God did bring me up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery, metaphorically, right? And so that he could be my God. We probably have had this for other situations, work situations as well, those kinds of things. So if that's where your mind takes you as well. But it's Monday. We'll have some contemplation on who God is and what he's done for us, and importantly, why he did it. So he could be our God. And that's a really important part of all of this. That's all I got for this morning. Have a wonderful day in the Lord, and we'll see you back here next time.